What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, good people? You know what time it is. This is the Birdcage. We have a special guest in the building for On the Perch. Y'all sit back, relax, and just enjoy while we pay some bills and get this thing started. Let's get to it. Birdcage.
Okay, y'all, this is it.
On, good people, you know how we get down. As we say in the cage, you either get right or you get left, and I'm gonna go ahead and let you folks get right while we get this thing started. But you know what, normally I have hand claps for folks to come in here, but you know, when you got a legend stepping into the cage, we've had many of them. I've had two Florida State legends in the building. My big cousin James Collins, he's watching tonight, shout out to him. FSU basketball with Bob Sura and Sam Cassell and those guys. And then we also had former first-round pick and Florida State legend who helped set this up, Mr. Sammy Smith. We appreciate you, but right now we got to give it to the legend at wide receiver, Mr. Kez McCorvey. This is how we're going to welcome in here instead of hand claps. This is what we do for our guests. Welcome, Mr. McCorvey. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Doing excellent, man. Just loving the fact that we get another legend in here. Like I said, I didn't have any toys to make those sounds come out last time James and Sammy were in here, so you know they might get a little jealous about that, but it's okay. I can take it. But definitely appreciate you stopping through, sir, tonight.
Well, excited, man, to get a chance to talk about it. I mean, so just some whatever stuff you want to talk about, let's get it out and let's go forward.
So, folks, if y'all are not familiar with this man, you know, we have some kids in here that did not watch FSU back in the day because they wasn't even thought of. A lot of their dads were watching this man play on TV. So I was a little kid watching you guys back in '93. Look, the closest you're going to get from me cheering for you guys is when you beat them Florida Gators, and I'll play that intro. See, I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan, but I don't have any hate for y'all at all. Y'all all right with me. It's pretty much them Gators I can't stand. So still to this day.
Well, you know, by default, we almost cousins, right? Because it's like what they say is the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and so so by default we are cousins. And so
you know, y'all look, you stole a couple of possessions out of the state. You stole Ron Simmons first, and then you stole Charlie Ward. So you've gotten some great players out of South Georgia. So, you know, it's a beautiful thing to see. At least the Gators don't get them. Georgia Tech don't get them. And definitely them stinking Alabama Crimson Tide boys don't get them as much. So I'm all right with that.
Yeah, recruiting has changed a whole lot, man. It used to be super proximity, right? And it meant a lot. So kids, you know, would go to school. So really South Georgia was like North Florida, which it is, right? You know, North Florida, it was the proximity of distance between Florida State and South Georgia. Thomasville was so close to where those guys would be. It would be an easier transition. Nowadays, man, them kids go everywhere. I mean, so it ain't got nothing to do with state or where you live at. They can fly a plane because they get enough money to do it. But it's changed a lot.
So let's go ahead and get this started. You're a Mississippi boy,
Yeah.
and my favorite football player of all time, my idol, is from Columbia, Mississippi, Mr. Walter Payton. That's my idol. And you guys have had some legendary players to come out of that state and just athletes alone. But when we speak on football, your name is in that echelon with the Jerry Rices, with the Walter Paytons, the Jimmy Smiths, and those guys that have come out of the state of Mississippi. For you, what type of, when you had all those powerhouses, HBCU powerhouses in the state at the time, and then you still have the state schools, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Southern Miss. When you were getting recruited coming up, what possessed you to go to Florida State, and how did you get into football? Let me go ahead and reverse that. How did you get into football from the start, or really athletics growing up? And who were some of your favorite athletes you looked up to that got you involved into playing sports growing up?
Well, I can answer that question. The person I looked up to the most was actually we lived in the same house basically almost. I had a cousin named Curtis Black, and Curtis was the neighborhood Michael Jordan. And so we lived in a place called Three Rivers, Mississippi, small suburb of Moss Point. And Moss Point in Mississippi, and the place I came from, high density of athletes. I mean, from Antonio Harvey to, a bunch of Dale Brown to Terrell Buckley, Shane Matthews. We had a bunch of athletes all over the place from that area. Jack Jackson, high density sports athletes in that area. And and I grew up in a small little town, but I had a guy that was super intense and living in the same house. He was 3 years older than me. He would whoop me down in basketball all the time. So I learned to be competitive from that. I learned to hate losing from living in the same household as he lived. And so he would beat me down. And so when I growing up, I was so used to not winning when playing him that when I got to play against guys my own age, and I started winning, okay, I can actually win, against guys my own age. And so I started to, as I transitioned from Three Rivers, a little small town, and really when I grew up, I was a baseball player. If you ask me, kids, what do you do? A baseball player. I never played any other sport except baseball. I played basketball in the backyard, but I played baseball. I can throw that thing 1,000,000 miles per hour, and I can hit it up. I can hit it like, I can hit and play baseball. And so when I got to middle school, the thing you run into is this right here is you come to find out that none of your friends are super into baseball. And so when you were in middle school and you trying to get some street cred and some credit from your friends, and none of them play baseball. Some of them play baseball, but not enough to where it becomes an issue. And everybody plays football or basketball. Then you quickly, socially move to those sports. And so I moved to playing football in middle school. Never played before in my life. Got to play middle school in the 7th, or I think the 8th, going into the 8th grade. Started playing football, and I went because my friends were going. And then I didn't tell my mama. My mama didn't know I was going to play football at all. And I just kind of snuck out there. Back then you could sign you a physical, and nobody even knew that you didn't sign the physical. The doctor didn't sign the physical. But got a physical and went out there and started playing football. And on that football team was a bunch of really, really great football players. Terrell Buckley, I grew up with him, and he was on that football team. And a bunch of other great football players were on that team at the same time. And I didn't know it. But I got out there and not knowing how to play football, first started playing tight end. And the next thing you know, I kind of slipped my way into playing receiver because I could catch the ball because I played baseball and played outfield too as well. And so that's kind of how I got started. And I played all the sports. I ran track, I played basketball, I played baseball and football. And so that was kind of how I got into sports, really. And even before that, I had a guy that kind of introduced me to baseball. And so I feel like if he hadn't introduced me to baseball, a friend of my mother's, who was a T-ball coach, asked my mother let me play some t-ball with him, I wouldn't have been in sports at all. And so for me, it seemed like happenstance, but I feel like I was tailor-made to play sports.
Mm. So when we sit back and we really look at those days of you being an athlete growing up, like you said, like a lot of people really don't understand the talent that is in the state of Mississippi because it's off in the cut.
Yeah.
Most people really don't understand just how great of athletes have come out of there, because when you look at Alcorn State, you look at Jackson State, Mississippi Valley State, they've had great players to come through there before desegregation happened. And then you really see a lot of schools start to come in once that happened and start pulling all that talent out of the state. It's scary to think about what, and I hate to say it, and I know Mr. Sammy Smith is in the chat. He just said go Noles. Shout out to Mr. Smith. And he graduated from Ole Miss, so he's half Seminole and half Rebel. So I had to hear a little trash talk from him about my Bulldogs losing to Ole Miss the way that they did. So, but when you really look at it truthfully, with all the talent that you guys have had and some of the guys that you've just named, if Ole Miss was able to recruit those dudes, that will be a problem. That would have been a problem. I had a cousin, shout out to Malcolm Barnes, better known as Speedy, played at Mississippi State in the 80s. He knocked out Kerwin Bell in his last game at University of Florida. I had to throw that out there. Look, we're Gator haters on this show. I don't even like Kyle Pitts like that, my tight end. So and people in here know that. But you know what? He wears the logo, so I rock with him because of that. But once he take that off, oh no love. No love. But getting back to it, when you look at how your high school career went, and Florida State at that time was starting to crest because Ron Simmons and those guys really started to turn their program around in the 80s. You talk about Prime, Sammy Smith. You talk about so many of these guys, the Jamie Dukeses, so many of these guys that came through. When you were recruited, what schools recruited you, and what was the process like for you, and what made you choose Florida State?
Dude, do you want to hear the story? I mean, really, I don't know if nobody really recruited me. Really, when I was a 10th grader, we won the state championship. Jeff Bowden was at Southern Miss, came out and was going to recruit me, and then he found out I was a 10th grader. And he said I guess he knew he was not allowed to recruit me. That was the only recruiting I got up until that point. I didn't know that you could even go to college. Honestly, I just didn't know that. I didn't know you can go to college. I didn't know it was it was an option. Now all that information is out there. Everybody wants to go to college. I didn't know you can go to college really until Shane Matthews, who was my quarterback, played for the Gators. All right, he went to University of Florida. And I thought, man, what in the world's going on here? People can go to college. I didn't know that was a thing, right? And then the next thing is the next year, Terrell Buckley went to Florida State. And every year, what we did is we always went to Florida State's football camp, the Bobby Bowden football camp. Every single year, they went there. And I didn't know anything about it. And I was under the radar on my team, right? And so when in the 10th grade, we win the state championship, all right? And Shane's the quarterback, Terrell's the star of the team. And then there's this 10th grade receiver, because back then we only had 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. That was high school. 9th grade was not a part of high school. That was still part of middle school in Mississippi. And so in the 10th grade, I was on the JV squad for Pascagoula. And we had a bunch of football players. All the numbers were used at Pascagoula because there were so many guys playing football, large school. And I was on the JV and didn't play a whole lot at all until we got to the playoffs. And so didn't play a whole lot at all, just like the rest of the 10th graders. And then get to the playoffs, we win the game for the first time all year long where we're down. We had never been down. Really, I think we ended up having like 9 or 10 shutouts. Our defense was stout. Team was really good. I think ranked number 12 in the nation. But in the playoffs, it's raining and we're down going into the fourth quarter, probably like with 4 minutes going the game. Some receivers got hurt. I'm on the sideline. They dressed everybody. They took everybody to the game. Some receivers got hurt, and I'm thinking to myself on the sideline, man, we in trouble. All the receivers are hurt. And then somebody said, I mean, the coaches called out my name, McCorvey. And I'm like, what? He said, you in the game. I said, you know, I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking, why? And then they put me in the game, and the very first, it's raining too. It's raining, it's wet. We're down for the first time all year long. It's 4 minutes to go in the game. We hadn't done really well. I go in the game. The very first play they call is halfback pass to Kez. Now, I had played the whole year. Now, but let me give you some history though. But during that season, during our JV season, we wasn't very good. And the only plays that we had that were successful was the halfback pass for our JV team. And so I think I caught like maybe 4 or 5 touchdowns on the halfback pass. And so we get to the game, it's 4 minutes to go, it's raining, it's late in the game. Shane Matthews looks at me, he says, halfback pass to Kez on 1. And looks at me and pokes me in my chest and says, catch the ball, right? He pitches it out to our guy, Jamie Otis, who was the fullback, but we put him at tailback because he had a stronger arm. He had a strong arm. And he throws high as he can, launches a bullet right into the sky. I'm running down the sidelines, you know, looking up at the sky. All I see is rain until I see this brown piece of rain, and I dive for it, and I catch it. And when I catch it, all right, we end up like inside the 10-yard line or something like that. And then the All-American tight end catches the game-winning touchdown, and we win the game. But from that point on, I am officially the guy. And so I'm officially the guy. And, you know, when you're the guy, a young high school player, you're 10th grade, right? And you got a lot of pull. So the next thing you do after you do something, and we go on to win the state championship, right? And so the next thing you do as a young guy getting some pull, making some plays in the game, guess what you do? You go and get the big head, and guess what you do? You underachieve. And that's what I did. I underachieved my 11th grade year, didn't do a whole lot. We had a good team still, couldn't do a whole lot of offense. Shane Matthews went to Florida, and we had a hard time producing as much offense as we had the year before, but we had a great defense. And like I said, I underachieved. And so I didn't do really well. And so going into my senior year, I had some things happen that kind of really shook my life up. I had an older sister who passed away. She was a hemophiliac, and she ended up dying from that. And that challenged me a lot, really just kind of where I'm going. I was having a great spring football season, but at that point, you know, you kind of lose some motivation. You know, you kind of have one of those things that, you know, punches you in your chest and you lose some motivation. And then what happened is I had a couple of things that happened that kind of shift me back into a focus of football. And so after that happened, I was down. And then I remember in class, I got a camp invite. Now back then, everybody got camp invites, right? It was come to camp, give me $395, you know, and it wasn't like it is now where they invite you because they think you. They just invite me. Because we went there every year, but I got mine in the middle of class, that invite, and all my fellow students saw it. My teacher, Spanish teacher, said, "I have a letter for Kez McCorvey from Florida State University. So proud, so excited. Somebody wants me. I'm finally getting some, you know." And it really wasn't, honestly. It really wasn't anything that was different. I'm sure that all the other guys got letters too as well. I just happened to get mine in the middle of class, and so I was so proud of that and so excited, and had the feeling and sensation that there's some opportunity out there. And then that very same day, we did testing, and testing for football, like, you know, bench, squat, broad jump, vertical jump, 40-yard dash. And I tested poorly because I hadn't been doing anything, right? I tested so poorly. And so I was so embarrassed, but what it did is shook me. It made me think, okay, if I don't do something quick, I'm going to lose this opportunity that's in front of me. So I made some sacrifices and put some work down. By the end of that summer, I'm in the best shape of my life. I go to Florida State football camp, and I tear that thing up. I go down there, and they had the number 1 receiver in the nation. Name was Andre Hastings. He was a bulldog.
Yes, I know about Mr. Hastings, and we appreciate that you sent him to us. Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. So for Georgia fans in here, we have Mr. Kez McCorvey to thank for Andre Hastings. So we want to make sure we extend thanks to y'all. You're right. We cousins. We are cousins. You gave us a
Well,
great one.
well, he was a great player too as well. And so we got to camp together, and it was like it's funny. It's funny how you do as a kid, right? You kind of get this automatic kind of antagonistic. I don't even know Andre, right? But I was kind of like it was kind of like Alpha Dog. Me and him. We actually raced from the field the first day. Yeah, like it was like a half a mile race. We raced from the field to back to the dorms over there. Just young kid trying to pee on a tree type of stuff. But I got to that camp and I did great. I mean, I killed all those guys and I did great. And at the end of that camp, they said, Kez McCorvey, you got a scholarship if you want it. And so, and then I went home. Nobody said anything to anybody else. It's not like nowadays, if you get an offer from somebody, right? Every school in the world knows that you got an offer. Back then, nobody knew. I got an offer from Florida State University. I didn't know what to do. I'm just sitting there like, you know what, man, is that how it works? I don't know. Well, I don't know what you do. And so I went home, knowing that, but nobody else knew it. And I played the season. Had a subpar season that, we didn't, the second best, I don't say the second, a great receiver was my quarterback. My friend Ted Alford was my quarterback. And he was a receiver too. It was either him or me playing quarterback. And I told myself, man, I just got this offer from Florida State. I'm not going to play quarterback. I'm going to play this receiver. and so didn't have a great senior season. Had a bunch of touchdowns and all that kind of stuff, but not what you want to. Not at Florida State's level. I think I had maybe 300 something yards, receiving in high school. I mean, nothing, really nothing. And, as I was reading all the guys that they were signing, I mean, guys that had 2,000, 1,000 yards, 200 receptions in their career, 99 receptions, all kind of crazy stats. And then there was me. But as I was going through that process, right, by the end of as we got to the point where we were going to sign, finally some of the other schools heard about the offer from Florida State. So then I got offers from Texas and Tulane and LSU and Alabama called and Auburn called and Ole Miss was calling too as well. But it was kind of late because they didn't know anything about me, and my heart was already in Florida State. I went in, Mickey Andrews came to my our stadium over there, and he didn't have to say nothing because I was already going to Florida State, and so that's kind of how it all went down.
Wow. Now, during the time you went there, like you said, Florida State offered you, they gave you that full ride. Now, there's a kid in your state that is up and coming, God rest his soul. To me, I feel like he's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. He just don't get credit like that. Steve McNair.
Yeah.
At the time. And I heard it was a story that Bobby Bowden decided Florida State Mickey Andrews, because he played corner, he was just as good at corner as he was at quarterback. And it wasn't just Florida State. University of Florida also recruited him as a corner. Now, here's my question I have for you. Why didn't they recruit him as a quarterback at that time? I know they had Charlie Ward, but he would have been right behind Charlie.
Well, I think they had the numbers of quarterbacks they had, right? Now, I'm gonna tell you a quick story, right? There were two people in the state that have the record for the most interceptions in the state. One is Terrell Buckley, and the other is Steve McNair. They shared the record for the most interceptions in the state. Now, you've seen Terrell, right? So I can just imagine what Steve was doing back there playing in the secondary. And you asked me the question about, why they didn't recruit him. I think Florida State was already full. They didn't recruit Shane Matthews. They didn't recruit Steve as well too. I think they were trying to figure out kind of how he would fit. They were trying to figure out how Charlie would fit. They had when I got there, they had Brad Johnson, they had Casey Weldon, they had Kenny Felder, and then they had just got Charlie Ward. And I don't know if they knew how to even utilize a guy like that, because they didn't. They really didn't. We were really trying to figure out how to utilize Charlie. We had no game plan for that, unless back then I think the option was, hey, run the option. How you gonna use a mobile quarterback? Run the option. That was the only game plan strategy for the mobile quarterback back then, up until that point to where we went to the no huddle. And so, I mean, I think most of the guys automatically thought option football was the way to go when you had the mobile quarterback. And I think Florida State was not, they're not an option team, obviously. And so I think that was probably the rationale, behind. I'm not trying to get anybody, but I think that's probably the rationale behind not taking Steve as a quarterback for Florida State.
No, I understand. I was just curious because you guys were around that same time, and I was just like, I heard many schools wanted him as a defensive back, and the only school that offered him a position was at quarterback was Alcorn State.
Yeah,
And we know what happened there. So,
yeah,
but
yeah. It's funny though. Just kind of how people. Football is a copycat sport, right?
mm-hmm.
And so, until someone comes up with an idea, has the audacity to try something new, people won't try anything new. And so until I think what we did at Florida State, until they started going no huddle shotgun and saw a guy in the backfield there had the mobility and ability to run with the ball and throw the ball, they just couldn't see it, how to utilize a guy like that outside of the conventional option game. But as soon as you saw one person do it now, man, everybody wants to do it now.
And a lot of those quarterbacks, like you said, it's a copycat league when you talk about that. Same with wide receiver. Y'all all run the route tree. You guys all hit the cones. Some guys are big and fast. Some guys are just strong and are possession receivers. Then you got guys that are just speed demons that are just God gifted to be able to move at the speed of light for a human. Yeah. So when you look at that, when you got to Florida State, you get there, what was your welcome to Florida State moment, and what opened your eyes to say, I'm here now?
Well, I had a couple of different things. Like when I first got there, I didn't know if I knew I was pretty good, right? Because I had gone against Terrell Buckley for 4 years, so I'm going against future Hall of Famer, All-American, all that kind of stuff. Like I'm going against every day. I didn't know what that meant, right? But I had unique skill sets that didn't always fit. They wouldn't. I mean, not many people could do. I mean, were doing some of the things I did. When I got to Florida State, the first thing I did, I got there early, and slept on Terrell Buckley and Lawrence Dawson's couch. The couch smelled like feet. But I slept on that couch for about 2 weeks, right? And then in there, you had some of the guys that were already there. You would see them. And then what they would do is they would have their highlight tape from high school. And so I told you I didn't have a whole bunch of yards in high school, and I had grown up with Terrell. I saw him in person. Tyler, have the record for the most interceptions in high school. Mississippi, right? I saw that, so I thought to myself, everybody's mutants. And then I saw Amp Lee's highlight film. I don't know if you remember Amp Lee, but
running back. Oh yeah.
And I saw his highlight film, and I was like, "Good Lord, what in the world?" I mean, nobody can touch him. And then he playing safety and knocking folks out. And so then I watched Eric Terrell's highlight film. Eric Terrell was like he had the record for the most punt returns in all the nation high school history. And I thought to myself, man, is everybody here a mutant? Is everybody got, really, because that's what you look at. When you look at guys, you see guys that are fast and athletic, and they get the ball in their hands and they're like lightning. And and I don't know if that was me. I'm quick. I'm quick as the day is long. But these guys were breaking one every other second, right? And then we get to practice. Matter of fact, before we get to practice, I get an introduction from one of my classmates, a guy named Corey Fuller. Corey Fuller comes down to the atrium. I'm hiding, right, because I don't want people to know that I'm scared. I wasn't an All-American, and I wasn't, I was all district and everything like that. And I just came to camp, and he came down, and he was very courteous to me. He said, he came downstairs with a couple other guys, William Floyd and a couple other guys. He said, "Hey, you that receiver that tried out for the team, huh?" And I was like, oh, okay. And that actually changed my mind from being afraid to like, no, I'm gonna destroy this guy. So the anger took over and took the place of fear. the anger took over, and I was dead set on making sure that they knew I may not be able to play here, but I'm gonna whoop you. But I went out to the field. When I got to the field, I had skill sets that were at a level to where they were, they were above the guys around me. I probably had, if you say now, I probably had a modern game. And so quickness, getting off the jam, using your hands, playing downhill on the ball, running routes. I could do that better than everybody else could do it. And it became a thing to where I didn't have to be 4-3. I could do things that other people couldn't do. Stop on a dime and have great body language and make people miss and all that kind of stuff like that. And so that's when I knew, okay, all right, okay, I'm okay. I'm pretty good here. But that doesn't, all that stuff right there does not always translate into a 80s offense.
No, because I'm not gonna sit there and trash my OC at Georgia, even though I got my feelings about Coach Mike Bobo, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut because he did get us to an SEC championship game, but there are shades of the old offenses from back in the day that he has not gone away from, some of those concepts, like you were saying. Now, and when you look at the game of football now, it used to be 3 downs in the cloud of dust when you guys played. Yeah. And then Steve Spurrier decided to open up the floodgates with that run and shoot offense. Yeah. Totally took college football to another level when you look at how the passing game was. And that's no disrespect to Mike Leach, because we already know what he did with the passing game, took it to another level. But Spurrier was the one who pretty much put everybody on notice because of the athletes that they had there. And that forced Coach Bowden to kind of change a few things up and open things up for you. Yeah. Now, when you get there, like you said, now I heard a few things about Coach Fuller, not nothing bad, but Coach Fuller is a trash talker. That I do know. And one of our former guests, shout out to Mr. Terrence Mathis, by the way, former Atlanta Falcon, played against him in the 98 championship. And Fuller was talking to him before the ball was snapped. Yeah. And he told me, he said, I wasn't going to have any good catches today. There's an infamous one-handed catch that set the tone for the game. And Terrence had 2 touchdowns in that game. Now, when you went up against him, because he was definitely a very good corner. Now, I really loved watching him play. He was a dog. But when you had your way with him, when was your moment where you looked at him? Because I know all y'all Florida State boys, y'all love to talk trash. It don't matter whether it's basketball or football. I know that from my cousin James. Y'all all talk trash. What was your moment where you started chirping at him when you guys were going in practice or whatnot, when you guys had it ratcheted up? Well,
that's one of the best things about Florida State is practices were so intense. I think that's the key. The practices, our one-on-ones were so intense. They were like life or death, and so when we did one-on-ones, man, that thing was on. And then he was very physical. Corey Fuller, just to tell you the truth, he ran a low 4.4. Mm-hmm. He was about 200 pounds. I mean, he's chiseled like, granite. I mean, he is thick, strong, like naturally strong as a house. And he is 200 pounds as a 205 and runs a 4.4. And so he is physical. Very. And so, very physical. And so we had some really great battles. I knew for myself, I can't make a mistake with him. I can't let him get his hands on me. I'm gonna have to whoop him at the line. I'd be more patient than he is. He's faster than me. He's stronger than me, right? But I had to be more subtle and more slippery, and than he was. And so and that helped me to be patient a lot of times, in the things I was doing, and very distinct in the things I'm doing to be able to get open. And so for me, I think that having those guys, Clifton Abraham, Corey Sawyer, Terrell Buckley, a bunch of guys, my cousin Errol McCorvey, he wouldn't be happy if I didn't say his name too as well. But having those guys to compete against in practice, it made it very, very, it got you a chance to be able to expand your game, because you're going against quality guys that are smart and they're athletic, and so you don't get no natural advantages over the guy. You ain't just whooping them every day. You got to be able to think too as well as a football player, and that helped to grow your game. And so for me, it helped me to grow my game. And so when we got to the games, guess what? I felt like I don't want to disrespect anybody, but I felt like the game wasn't as intense as the practices were.
And it's not a disrespect, because I've heard that, talking to former national champ Buck Bellew, he said that about Georgia during the time where Herschel, my godfather Clarence K, and all those guys were there. He talked about how physical practices were. Then you talk about Alabama, Mr. Eric Curry, BirdCage alum, shout out to him. He said the same thing about Bama. All the programs that actually win championships, or at least are on the cusp of that, they talk about the competitive nature of what the environment is, because competition breeds greatness.
Yeah.
I can't say that about my Falcons still, waiting for them to get a championship. Yeah, I took a shot. I love them, but I keep it honest. But looking at your college career, getting to the games, what was the best game in your mind that you had, and what rivalry was one of the best that you played in, that you still to this day, if your body can hold up, like you say, would you go back and play in it again? What rivalry?
Yeah. So I'm gonna say that the best rivalry is bar none is the University of Miami rivalry, right? Back then, Miami they were the dogs. They were the top team in that area. In 1990, I think they won the national championship, or what was it? No, I don't know. Maybe it was 90, but I know I think they won it in 91 or something like. Oh, maybe Georgia. Well, no, 91. Well, one of those years they won, and then they were in it again in 92, and then we played them and knocked them out in 93, and in 94 they were playing Nebraska down there. They were the top dogs. Those games were so epic. I remember my first year playing in that Miami game. We played here. It was the first wide right, and that thing was so loud in our stadium. It was so intense. I had so much adrenaline pumping because of that game. I remember Lamar Thomas and some of the receivers ran through our line. They ran through our warm-up line. That's the intensity of the game. Yes. The very first drive, you go down there, and then the games were never out of reach. It was a battle, a fight to the end. So those were some of the most intense games. Even playing professional football, those were some of the most intense games I think I've been in, because of the rivalry and how hard the guys played, and just the emotions that were tied into it. So I love the Gators, but the most intense games were that Miami game every year. So wide right 1, wide right 2 down there. We beat them in Tallahassee. We go down in my senior year, and we, I'm not going to say it, but we end up giving them the game away. So I lost them 3 times. There's no other team that I have a losing record against. No other team. No other team. And so, so those were the most intense games that I had right here. And then just for myself, best game I had. I don't know if you can look at the stats. When I look at it now, I would, if you asked me a bunch of years ago what's my best game, I would look at the stats and said, in Duke I caught, I caught at halftime. I had 200 yards at halftime. I could have had 400 yards if I wanted to, but I told coach put the other guys in, right? But now I look at it a little bit different. I look at it like, what were the games where I just poured out all my heart in a game? And I feel like I've had some of those games where, my body wasn't well. I was hurt, but guess what? I poured it all out, to put us in a position to play hard. And I remember my last game against the Gators, the choke it dope. I ended up that game having 11 receptions for 140 something yards, but, came back from a separated shoulder, go give me your best, down by 28 points with 10 minutes going a game, could have gave up, but guess what? You keep pushing through, and you play that game all the way out, and you end up scoring 28 points in 10 minutes to have the greatest comeback in NCAA history. Those are the type of games, the ones I look at now, just like, my heart, my body did good, but my heart had to stay in there too to make us want to go out there and keep fighting.
And also, shout out to your former teammate Danny Cannell, because he was the quarterback during the choke it dope. He talks about it on the radio. He said, that was my shining moment. I said, yeah, you didn't lose to Florida. See, look, the team I hate, I despise Florida. So as a kid growing up, I had Steve Spurrier left me in tears as a child growing up. To this day, if I got a chance to take a body shot at Spurrier, I might. But he's such a nice guy. He recruited my buddy to go to Marvin Sapp, who played for him in South Carolina. When he was there, I got to meet him. You know, I talked trash about him, but he truthfully, outside of the trash talk, he's one of the nicest dudes.
He is a nice guy.
Nice guy. But you know, anytime he put on that orange and blue, I can't stand him.
No, they're obnoxious. The Gators are obnoxious. We gotta listen to some of their fans when they talk about Kyle Pitts. So I got to hear it all the time. Yeah, y'all took a Gator #1. And I said, we still waiting on that unicorn to show up. You know, unicorns, they show up sometimes and then they magically disappear. So we waiting on that still. We need him to ball out. But we're gonna take a break. I gotta put this out here for you guys. This is a little something. Instead of me showing the commercial this week, sorry, Scoop, I got you on the next episode. But we have a little something, Mr. McCorvey. Sit back and relax. We got you. So if you don't know who he is, you're about to know.
So just give it all you got now. Give it all you got. Just make yourself right now. You're gonna play every down like it's your last one. Even if you're about to die, I'll play one more down as hard as I can play. Then I'll let the coach know and get me out there so I can put some.
Ward to the far sidelines, wide open. Kez McCorvey.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Just had to show you a little something about Mr. Kez McCorvey. Not only is he a FSU Hall of Fame wide receiver, he also is a great coach. But we're going to get back to his FSU days, but I wanted to make sure that you got to see his wide receiver academy, that he's helping young men out, not just teaching them how to be football players, but teaching them how to be upright citizens. And one of the persons that influenced what you teach people, and, you know, you've touched me in some ways when we've had conversations, the man that we saw at the beginning of that video, Coach Bowden.
Yeah.
And that was in a national championship game that he made that speech for you guys. What was it like for you going into that national championship game after all the heartbreak that you experienced, and you guys were there that night and you knew you had a chance to do something that hasn't been done at FSU? How did it feel to be the first team to win a national championship for Coach Bowden?
You know what? It was special. You know, I tell you what, even time has made it even better. Time has made it even better because now, as a player, you don't really understand the person that you're playing for, because you just have a limited viewpoint of his, you know, his legacy, you know, what he stands for, you know, the values that he has, you know, what he's gone through to be able to get us to that point. And so, with time, you start to understand some of the different things, the values, and all the things that he stands for, and it becomes even greater. I have more respect for Coach Bowden now, just having spent time with him. Now I'm in full-time ministry now, and I got a chance to spend a lot of time. Last 5 years of his life, I would get a chance to travel with him and take him to places and kind of I don't want to say chaperone. He's a full-grown man, but I would go there, I would travel with him. And just to get a chance to see him in those environments and how he cared about people and how he valued them, to me it was amazing. And then just to see his personality and how he's, you know, diligent and he's a hard worker and he cares about his guys, and that's legitimate, you know. And not everybody in college football, college coach cares cares about their players. Coach Bowden cared about his players. I was blessed. I feel like God put me in this situation to be blessed to be up under the tutelage of a person that cared about you and have a staff that cared about you too as well. Not only your physical well-being, but also your spiritual well-being. And so I think that is super important to have a person that represents more than just football. Not just about football. It's more than just football. A person that cares enough to be able to put whatever he's doing on the side to make sure that he sacrifices for you. So I think that's the type of person he is and what he was.
And when you look back at it and you talk about your legacy being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and it cemented you forever, and then you ended up, coming back after the national championship, being a Biletnikoff finalist. When you look at the garnet and gold as a player, what does it mean to you to represent that still, even after your playing days, and the standards and lessons that you learned from Coach Bowden and also Coach Rick, who also had a huge impact on my program at, University of Georgia? What do you see now that you're in their position doing what they did and you're no longer a player? How do you feel as if it affected you and it made you a better man to be around them and them to see you get to the Florida State Hall of Fame? What does that mean to you?
Well, you know what? It is an honor to be in that Florida State Hall of Fame. I'm honored to even, because I don't think I ever thought about that. You don't ever think about that. You don't understand, the rare air that you're in when you say that you're in the Hall of Fame at Florida State University. It's a bunch of guys that are great football players that didn't get that honor. So I'm honored. I'm thankful. I understand the process, because it show could have not happened. I'm in high school, right? I got 300 some yards, right? You don't go from 300 some yards to having close to 3,000 yards. That's usually the opposite. You usually have 3,000 yards in high school, and to get to college, you have less. I went the opposite, right? And then I got the chance to be on the national championship team. Got a chance to be an All-American. Got a chance to get in the Hall of Fame. So I'm thankful for that. And then just the legacy. I think Coach Bowden's legacy is not even in the wins. It's not in the wins. It's not in the national championship. It's not that's not his legacy. His legacy is in the people. The people that he's influenced, right? Because that's what you do in life. Because that's what we do. We influence. And so my hope is to influence like he did, right? An even higher level, to influence people for a greater cause than just their own cause, right? I think that's the way football needs to be played. You don't play for just yourself. You play for a team. If you're a good teammate, guys, and you love the guys around you and you sacrifice for the guys around you, you have an opportunity to have success. And I think that's what we did a good job of. He created an environment for where players loved each other enough to where they gave themselves an opportunity for success because they would sacrifice. And so that's my hope to transition and carry on, is that part of the legacy that Coach Bowden left.
And I definitely look at it, and you played in the NFL. You were drafted in the 5th round by the Detroit Lions for a little bit, and it's ironic you have ties to a lot of guys that I watch or talk about, because Luther Ellis was the 1st round pick. His son Caden just was unfortunately released by the Falcons. I wanted him to stay, but when you get to Detroit, you're there with Luther Ellis. You got Benny Bryant, you got the Blades brothers. You got one of the greatest players of all time in Barry Sanders there. Mm-hmm. You got Loomis Brown that's there, Kevin Glover, and then you got Robert Porcher and those guys. What was that like, going from Florida State and getting to the next level and seeing what that was like being in an NFL standard where guys probably didn't care as much as they did when you were in college? Yeah,
it's a different environment. Pro ball is a different environment, and then even Detroit too. I mean, because it's no longer, as team oriented as it is in college. It's a business, and you are an individual operator in that business, and you got to think like that too as well. The guys that play a long time think like that, and so that's what I did learn. I enjoyed my time in Detroit, and I learned a lot as far as, the game and just, in life. But some of the things I learned a lot more than anything else was just, I learned life. I learned a little bit about life and how God works and how he uses those things to bring you to another better understanding. And so when I got to Detroit, I remember they would say they would pick on it because Florida State at the time, people loved to hate on Florida State because we were winning, right? So people loved to hate on them. They would pick on it about it. You know what? Shoot, you kid, you taking a pay cut to come over here to Detroit. And I'm thinking to myself, no, I ain't getting no money. Florida State, what you talking about? And I just don't think they understood the kind of the environment that we had at Florida State. It was a great environment, and it was legitimate. It was legitimate. It was pure. I won't say it's pure because everybody got situations going on, but it was a legitimate situation, right? And you had guys that care about each other and guys that wanted to work hard to achieve a goal. And so in Detroit, I don't know if we had that. My first 2 years, it was with Wayne Funts and love Wayne. Wayne was fun, but I don't know if we was always. I don't know if we was always serious. I don't know if we always had that same winning mentality that we had an expectation that you had at Florida State. Florida State, I expected to win every game. No game that I expect not to win, not even just to win, to dominate. Detroit, man, we just got to win them home games, boy. We keep our jobs. A little bit. That was the kind of mentality that we had, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you can win consistently with that type of mentality, of just getting by. And so I think that, and what you learn is you learn that everybody doesn't have that type of vision to see yourself as being one of the best. Even at pro ball, you think pro ball is top level and everybody is elite and everybody has a winning attitude, and that's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. Great leaders there, but you know what? You can lose that too as well once you reach a certain goal. And so that's part of the deal.
And then you also, you spent time over in Europe with the Rain Fire.
Yeah.
Over in NFL Europe for a year. And then you came back and you played your last 2 seasons with the Edmonton Eskimos. And then you got into coaching 11 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
You coached the Toronto Argonauts, and then you ended up winning a Grey Cup with Edmonton, 2 Grey Cups with the Edmonton Eskimos.
Yeah.
What was that like, going from knowing that, okay, my playing days are done, I get to Edmonton, and Edmonton already had a great history because of Warren Moon, and even prior to Warren Moon winning championships. What was it like for you to taste the success of winning a championship? And what was it like for you to also be able to touch those young men's lives and influence them, not just with being a receiver, but also teaching them about Christ?
Yeah, you know what happened is one of the best things that happened to me in Detroit was this right here is I became a Christian in Detroit. And so my 3rd year, I'm finally starting for the Detroit Lions, finally on the field. They let go of some of the other receivers. New coaching staff comes in. I'm finally the starting guy too as well. I feel like I earned a position. Before the season starts, I hurt my foot, tearing my foot. And now that dream of, first of all, I'm in a contract year. So the dream of getting this next contract is gone, is basically fading away. And then, my career is basically starting to go away too as well. And so I get hurt and, I don't get healthy. The next year I get cut from the team. And then, I'm out for a year, have surgery. Well, I don't have surgery. I actually go to NFL Europe, play over there, still struggling with my foot. I end up going to Carolina for a little bit. And then the best thing happened at Carolina. Well, and at Detroit, I become a Christian. God reveals himself. I would say that to me in Detroit. Great coaching staff that set the environment for me to see that I needed Christ. Great players around me, Frank Reich and a bunch of other guys, teammates that were Christians at the time. Glenn Milburn invited me over to his house, and I accepted Christ as my Savior over his house on an off night. But that started to change in my life to where I saw life differently. And so I ended up trying to still play football after that injury and get to the NFL, get to Carolina and the camp, and the doctor there finally diagnoses my foot, and I get surgery. And then, I'm trying to get back in the league. It's hard to get back in the league when you're injured. And then somebody convinces me to go play Canadian football, need to get some film. Get up there, had my first year, lead the league in touchdowns and all that kind of good stuff. Had a great time. That was great for my family. I needed that. The second year, the third game, I tear my ACL. And then from that point on, it was like I came to the realization that, it's maybe time for me to move on. Moved on, started a business and training athletes. And then, after about, like you said, a bunch of years, I decided to get back in. I decided to get into coaching. Wanted to coach, but I had a young family, so decided not to coach. But then finally made the decision that it was time for me to, do something I'm really, really good at, which is coaching. So I started coaching and coaching in high school for 2 years. Then I coached in a small NAIA school, Bethel University, for about 6 months. And then I went to Toronto, and we actually ended up winning the championship in Toronto. And I felt like I knew what I was doing, and we had success with receiver position, and then was in high school for a little bit, and then back to Edmonton. Back to Edmonton, we win the championship again there too as well. And so felt like you had a knack for it, but still didn't always feel settled. Like you feel like you can do some good stuff, but if you don't do it for the right reason, it's not good. And so I don't know if I was trying to validate myself as far as being a good coach, which I feel like I was, but you don't need to be, you don't need to always have all the acknowledgement to be a good coach. And so, I coached a couple of years over there, and coached in the CFL, and then coached in Middle Tennessee, and then for the past 9 years, I've been in full-time ministry, coaching at the same time too as well, high school. But I got a chance to develop a bunch of good receivers and play on some good teams and win a state championship here at the school I coach at now at North Florida Christian.
Okay. And when you talk about it, and this is something, and like I said, I don't have a problem with talking about it. So if y'all are offended about us talking about the Lord, you know what? It's okay. We're not forcing it on you. We talked a little bit about the football side, but we're talking about the spiritual side of this now. Because at the end of the day, guess what? We still all need that type of salvation and grace. We all do. It might have to come in a different form for certain people, but then again, we talk mental health on this show, and this is part of helping folks with mental health as well as spiritual health. Yeah. But getting back to it, when we talk about the fact that you won those championships and you did it, and this is after the Lord is giving you opportunities with that, what did it feel like to go back to tell Coach Bowden, Coach, I'm not, you're not a head coach, but Coach, we won a championship. I contributed to that. What was it like talking to Coach Bowden about being successful and finding some success that the Lord opened that door for you after that NFL door was closed from you being a player?
Yeah. You know what? When I was in college, I don't know if I spent a whole lot of time with Coach Bowden. Because I think I was afraid, that, I wasn't secure in myself. You can do that in life, right? You can not be secure in yourself. You can not understand who you are, and you can see, the relationship and opportunities. Now, when I became a Christian, right, and I remember going to his office. The first person I spoke to was Dave Ben Hallinger, who's the strength coach. The second person I spoke to was Mark Rick. The third person I spoke to was Coach Bowden. I went to his office and I said, Coach, my life has changed, right? And I wanted him to know that he was a part of that, of my progression into that direction. But then, we got a chance to spend a lot of time together. I would go to the meetings all the time, and he would allow me to come to the meeting room, and I would sit in there as they were game planning and all that kind of stuff. Our relationship really became close. It did. I would go and I would introduce him at some of his speaking events, and we got a chance to spend a lot of time together. So I'm thankful for that, and I think he was more proud of my relationship with Christ than he was with the championships. Be honest with you, and so I think those were. And if I needed a job, right, when he was one of my persons that was on my resume for a job interview. Especially after he stopped coaching too as well, because he would always call, and people would be surprised that Coach Bowden is calling them for for one of his old players. But I think that was more than anything else, the thing that he would speak about to me all the time was my relationship with Christ. He would, even when he was getting ready to die. So, Coach Bowden is kind of been, everybody knows that Coach Bowden is, supposed to be, I guess, going to die, I guess. And we had been together for a while, man, like 5 years now. I traveled with him all over the place on the, planes and cars, driving everywhere. And I was actually kind of like, wishing I could, didn't want to interfere with the family, grieving this process. Didn't know what that looked like, right? And so I'm hesitant about going over to his house to say what I had to say. I don't know what I was going to say, but say what I was going to say. But I felt like I've just been there. I've been part of the family for the last, even past a player, but the past couple of years we've been close. And so I'm trying to be respectful, don't want to interfere, but also a little bit of fear in my heart too as well. Kids, get out of the way. And then finally one day I decided, just what, I'm his friend. I'm gonna go over to his house and I'm gonna talk to him. And so I do. I go over there and I knock on the door and they answer the door. The family does and say, "Hey, Kez, how you doing?" And I said, "Coach Brown." He said, "Yeah, he's back there in the back right there. When you go in and knock on the door, he'll wake up and you can go and say hello." And I'm like, okay, all that. I was concerned about nothing, And I went back there and spoke to him and he was like, I'm going back there to really kind of to cry, But when I get back there, he says, "Hey, Kez, how you doing, buddy? Boy, you better stay on that FCA. You better stay on that FCA, man." I'll be, "Hey, you're doing a great job over there. You better keep it up now." And I'm thinking to myself, Coach Brown, you're supposed to be dying. You're supposed to be dying over here. You over here encouraging me. I
still coaching you.
Yeah, still coaching me. And, and this thing. And what I saw is this right here. I saw how to finish well. How somebody, you talk about attitude, right? Always having a great attitude. But you don't think about it. You give somebody a break when it's to death. But he, even into death, he had the great head. That was his character. That's who he was. And so to me, it just showed you how to finish. It showed you how to finish. And I was just like, my goodness, thank you for that gift of being who you are in that moment. And so that to me is kind of the thing that mattered the most to me. Football was excellent, it's great, but it was, that example. That's the most important thing because that sticks with you.
And when you speak about character, we always speak about it. I know I talk trash on my show and things like that, but that's just, it's just what we do. But when you speak about character, I always say this. My last name is the only thing I own in this world. Money comes and goes. Jobs come and go. My last name is the only thing that I have and what I believe in. And at the end of the day, how did you live your life? And even though I'm a dog fan, I find myself, I quoted Bobby Bowden the other day. I stubbed my toe. I said, "Dadgummit." And I started laughing because that was his catch. That was his catchphrase. And we used to all laugh about it. But I had a couple of guys who I knew that played at Florida State for him. Tony Carter, who's head coach up at Central State University. Tony, I'm still waiting on you to call me too, buddy. So yeah, I'm calling you out in front of your fellow Noel. Got to. But he said he would do it for me. But Tony, I've heard stories about him, Leon Washington, guys that were around the Jacksonville area who were older than me, but you would hear them talk about Coach Bowden, and then they always just like, even with guys that he threw off the team that you didn't hear about, or if it was bad enough, he was still in those guys' lives talking to them and trying to check up on them.
Yeah.
And I was just like, there's not many coaches, because the game has changed now, that really check up on guys after they leave.
Yeah.
Whether they're in the league or whether they get thrown off the team, they only care about what's right there. And the funny thing is, Kirby, my coach right now, both of my coaches that coached at Georgia, Mark Rick and then Kirby Smart. Kirby was a grad assistant for Florida State. So a lot of folks don't understand how everyone realizes that Bobby Bowden touched a lot of lives.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize it. And I respect Coach Bowden, because the funniest thing was he talked about, and I told it in an interview. He said, Bear Bryant was my idol. I respected the man. I wanted to go, I wanted to be like him in a way. But he said that job for Alabama came up. He said, no, I'm good. I want to build my own situation here at Florida State, which he did. But when you look at it, if he'd have went to Alabama right after, God rest his soul, Bear Bryant would have passed, I don't think it would have been the same type of impact he'd have had as he had at Florida State, because he built it from the ground up after he left West Virginia.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that Bama was already built. Let's be honest. The standard was already the standard there.
Yeah.
And it would have been hard because think about it. Look at how many coaches they went through before they got Gene Stallings and won a championship.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hard deal.
Coach Bowden to be at Florida State for over 20 years and then was able to still consistently win, even when he knew that the talent level wasn't like it was during your time, he was still winning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Florida State not an easy job, I'm telling you. Florida State not an easy job. And,
no.
No, it's not. And people now see that too as well. Just, it takes the right person to be able to manage this situation. I mean, that's a bunch of stories that I've heard about Coach Bowden and the way he went about the process of getting all the juice out of this berry in Tallahassee, and then the way he, thought about the process of being in the school right here and making the school into a dynasty type of school. When you hear that name, it means something. And it's a unique study. That's what somebody should do. It's a unique study of psychology for a team and for a community to build something like that. And so I'll always be much respect for him and what he has done in this deal too as well. But you know what? I think that the biggest thing too is, when you look at it too, the biggest thing that he did, he had great humility. And I think it takes that great humility to be able to find great people and be great to people in those situations, right? When you look at, I remember a coach one time said to me, one of the same things, said, Kez, you might be too nice to be a college coach. And I looked at him and I was kind of thrown back a little bit, but I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I just saw the greatest of all times, at a time, do it and do it with class and character, all right, with a good heart. I'd be dog if like you can't do it like that. I'd be dog if you can't do it like that, right? With a Jesus mindset, and I think the truth, the Bible talks about the truth, and the truth shall set you free. You shall know the truth will set you free, right? Having people speak truth in your life, having people tell you that they love you and care about you, but care enough about you to tell you the truth, man, that can't be wrong. That can't steer you wrong. And so I just feel like that's the kind of person he was, and so that's as a model off of Jesus.
And this is the last part of our interview we're gonna get to, and I got some fun questions to ask, and definitely appreciate you giving that side, because like you said, you never know what somebody's going through, and that word right there might be something that somebody needs. So if you're out there watching, if you're having a hard time, just understand we're not just entertainment, we're also a concerning show that actually cares about mental health and people's spirituality in that sense. So please, if you need somebody to pray with you, talk to you, make sure you go get it done. Do not suffer in silence, please. So, but let's get to some better things. I think that was the best thing we talked about, but let's get to some other things that I think is great too. When you were in Tallahassee, how much pressure did y'all have on y'all to perform? Because FAMU was winning the championships before y'all were. They were the champs in the city. And how often did Coach Bowden go talk to Coach Rudy Hubbard? And then after Coach Hubbard left, then we had Coach Billy Joe, who actually did the show for us. My coach played for him and won championship with him. When you guys were in the city, because Tallahassee's but so big, y'all right up the street from each other.
Mm-hmm.
What type of kind of I'll say kind of like unwritten rivalry was it with the football teams in that city at that time?
To be honest with you, we didn't have a rivalry. We were all friends because we were over on FAMU's campus, right? All the girls was over there. You ain't gonna mess that up.
Yeah, you get to come over there and hang with the boys. Yeah.
No, man, no, we knew better than that. We was friends. I was friends with a bunch of the guys from FAMU. And we practiced together a lot of times, right? Back in the day, we would actually practice sometimes together with FAMU in practices, and so I think we had a really great relationship with especially the football team over at FAMU throughout the years. It's kind of almost like a brotherhood, because I know a bunch of the guys that played at FAM and really good friends, and still to this day. And so that's probably amazing that happened, but silly enough, it did. It did. And so they would see us on the set over at FAMU, and we would hang out together and everything like that. And so it wasn't a whole lot of drama. Not between us now. Maybe the basketball team, they had drama over there, but the football team, they had no drama. Maybe some of the other folks had drama. The football team, they had no drama.
Yeah. Well, Coach Prime told that story on his, he was sitting there telling the story about I've been to Tallahassee, so I know about Club Moon. I know. I was young, had buddies of mine that went to FAM, had a couple that went to Florida State. So I hung out at the Moon. Like went and got the chicken fingers, of course. If you know, you know. But went over there. He told a story about a FAMU football player knocking out a Florida State player because they were chirping.
Yeah. And
it was just over nothing. And Dion said, I was a young guy. He told me, man, go to the car and get a gat. And I was like, knowing I didn't have no gun. And he said, I was just trying to get out of the way because he said, hey, man, he said, them boys for that FAMU, he said, they're a little rough.
Yeah, you know what happened, though? I think what we did is they ended up having some issues. Yeah. And they had a person that passed away, got a kid named Pablo. And I think Coach Bowden tells the story, too. But, I think that may have changed when I got there. Because, like I said, we didn't have a whole bunch of issues. But you had some things that changed, that kind of changed perspective and kind of how guys saw it a little bit from some of those things, some of those things that happened in the past before I got there, that may have changed the atmosphere. Back in the day, that back in the day, still today now, but back in the day, it was rough. We just, people was just starting to, hit the streets a little hard back in the early 90s and late 80s. People started to hit the streets and the gangs and all that kind of stuff like that. It was going a little bit rough, and so some of that stuff was going on, and so I think that may have changed some of that atmosphere.
I'm glad that it did. It was a funny story because Prime said, I ain't want to fight none of them dudes. He said, I saw them. He said, he knocked out 2 of my linemen. And he said, And he said, Big Jamie Dukes. He said, Big Dukes got us up out of there quick. But when we look back at it, though, that's good that you guys can intermingle how the relationships are. And outside of that, who was your favorite teammate? I got a
teammate. Well, shoot, my roommate was one of my favorite teams. There's a bunch of characters on that team, man. A bunch of them jokers, man. I told you I grew up with Terrell. Yep. Terrell, that joker there, was cocky and arrogant ever since he was in 5th grade, and so I knew if you told me back then that he was gonna play pro ball, I probably believed because he told you too. And so, but my roommate, named Omar Ellison, he was a running back from Georgia. He's from Georgia, from Griffin. But that was my roommate. He's a character. And so he's one of my favorite guys. We hung out. We were like this right here for them 5 years out of school. We were together, came in together. We was like this every day, all day long, hanging together, spending time together. But Easy O, that's probably my favorite guy. But I got favorite guys I love too as well. I love some of the players. You ask me who my favorite, players who I'm a fan of. Shoot, who wouldn't be a fan of Work Done? I love some Work Done. WD.
We love him in Atlanta. We still love him in Atlanta, and
Yeah.
he's so humble, chill, just like my cousin James told me. He said, "Man, Ward was always just a laid back dude, always."
Yeah.
But he said, but when he got on the field, he said he was different.
Yeah. It's different. Time to get it. I love me some Charlie too as well. We had a connection. When you have that quarterback receiver connection, right? When you just on the same page with a guy, that's special. That's special when hey, I'm gonna get open for you. Throw that thing around me, I'm gonna get it. And then he trusts you to do it too. And so, that's a special relationship when you got somebody's trust, right? And so that was special too as well, just having Charlie over there. And then, you got the other players on the team that you just their favorite guy. One of my other favorite guys, Clay Shiver, was my center, right? And so, and I love me some Clay Shiver too as well. I remember I yell at him sometimes too. I yell at him, get on him sometimes, and he'd yell back at me. And I love me some William Floyd too as well. Because, just the attitude, the personality.
Mr. Barnum.
Yeah, Mr. Barnum. So Mr. Barnum was our physicality. He was always up for a fight. And so you knew if nobody was gonna fight, he was gonna fight. And so you just had these personalities on your team that kind of made you feel comfortable.
Well, bar none is a cute dog too, so I wouldn't expect nothing less.
Yeah, he always ready up. He gonna battle. I love watching some of his battles on the game because he played a physical game all the time.
Yes, he did.
He played a physical thing. I remember him and Chris Slade were going at Virginia game. I'm out there blocking myself, and I'm looking back at him. And after the whistle, they still banging each other. I'm like, what in the world is going on? These big old humans over here is playing a different game than I'm playing. I don't want none of that. He loved it.
I enjoyed watching him when he was with Frisco when I was a kid because unfortunately I had to see him twice as a Falcon fan because he played for him. And I mean, now my man Jesse Tucker got the best of him. Now I'm gonna put my chest out for that one. But he got
the beast.
And it's funny because Jesse was undrafted. That's what a lot of Falcon fans know it, but then you have some that don't know. They just knew he played, and it's like, nah, he was undrafted. And for a guy like you were saying that came from a small school, just really didn't get recruited by big time schools, you really just see that a guy just came there, walked on, made special teams, and then once he got that middle linebacker spot, he never let it go.
Yeah.
And like you say, you have to take opportunities when the Lord blesses you with them because you never know how it's going to happen.
No, you don't. Some people, and then this is the thing right here, though, it's this, I believe this right here, just, we give so much credit to the numbers, but just because they got numbers don't mean they win us. Just because some people got numbers or they big or that don't mean, that they win us. Some guys just innately got it inside of them that they're not going. They believe in themselves. They believe in themselves. They work hard. Guess what? They own it. They own it. Yeah, and I believe that's what Jesse was. Jesse was the guy. I own that position. I'm a winner. I'm a win. Whoever gonna compete for this job with me is not gonna win. And that's something to be said about that. Just belief in yourself, believe in the purpose that God put you in, and walking that thing out.
And lastly, last question. This is gonna be a whole question. What teammate do you think you could help us get to come on to the show, or just anybody it doesn't matter. I mean, when you talk about athletes forming that don't mind, I'll create artwork for them. Who would you like to see us try to get an interview with, and how would you enjoy also being able to just continue to come back with us and also promote your camp too on our show?
Yeah,
we can help you out with that.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of who would be appropriate. Who do you want? Who do you want?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Anyone that you can anyone that doesn't mind, let them know. Now, look, right now we working on as Joe Frazier used to say, we working on trying to get some love or whatnot with monetization. We trying to work on that. But what we do offer, as you know, I'm gonna get you, a PO box or whatnot, because I'm gonna send you the artwork I made for you or whatnot. I do this for every guest that comes on. and my guys, we all put in for this, and we make sure that we have something for you just to say thank you for coming on.
Oh, I appreciate you. But I don't know. I mean, I got a bunch of guys and friends and whatnot that might be.
I tried Coach Buckley, but I also understand that he's real busy with Mississippi Valley State right now.
Yeah, he is. You're not gonna get him right now. He probably he is busy. He is busy trying to get that football team to where he wants it to go. So it's but I'm trying to think of some other guys too. Mario Edwards, I went to school. I mean, I grew up with Mario too as well. I mean, so really, I'm trying to think of who's the person.
You know what? If he's not too busy, I know he's busy right now getting ready to start spring ball. He talk Coach Fuller. We can do that.
Yeah, he talk Coach Fuller.
Because Terrence Mathis made sure he let it be known that that NFC Championship game, I got something for you.
I touched base with Coach with his nickname is Boucher. I touched base with Boucher and see if he might can get a chance to come over here too as well. And then shoot. I mean, I know some other guys too as well. Some younger guys, E.G. Green and Peter Warwick, and some of those guys who might be some good guys.
Oh man, I love to talk to Peter Warwick. Me and my guys tonight. My guy that was supposed to be on here, K-Dub, shout out to him. He's helping his daughter celebrate his birthday. Family first over here, by the way. We always preach that. He was supposed to be on that, but Peter Warwick is cool. My old high school coach played with Trouble, and if you don't know who Trouble is, Lavernius Coles played at Reebok High School. Shout out to my aunt and my mom. They're Reebok alum. My high school coach, he was an OC. He played with Trouble, and I got to kick it with him at Jets training camp this year. I went up to New York. I'm right up the road anyway.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I met him, and I also met Braylon Edwards too. I had, nice guys, real nice dudes. But I knew Trouble from back in Jacksonville. So but no. And shout out to Lavernius Coles. He's a police officer now. He's doing
absolutely.
Turned his life around. So definitely was glad to see that. And it was just amazing just to meet him and how humble he was at the Jets training camp. Real nice guy. But
he is. Love Lavernius too as well. He's a great guy as well. So yeah, man. So if you know somebody that you think I might know, then just hit me up and I'll do whatever I can to help you.
I definitely will. And like I said, I'm gonna let the folks know about your camp real quick and let them know where they can find you at.
Yeah, man. So we do the academy. It's called Liquid Metal 88. So that was a nickname I had, Liquid Metal. But I just teach guys how to run routes, right? I think route running is a lost art. Not everybody kind of spams all the moves and stuff, but what I hope to do is to teach guys how to apply them in the right situation, right? How to put your foot in the ground and snap your foot down, snap down, and how to, work leverage and how to finish the top of your routes and what the steps look like, and then how to be deceptive with your body language and get off the press and use your hands, all that kind of stuff like that are the things that you need to learn if you're going to be a high-level wide receiver. And so we get a chance to teach that and teach the guys at a young age so that they can now apply pro-level game at a high school level, pro-level game at a college level, pro-level game at a pro level too as well. And so we do that here. And so you can go to my website. It was up there a while back. It was Kez McCorvey, widereceiverskills.com. So yeah, Kez McCorvey, widereceiverskills.com. You can go to that website and see kind of different things that we do. And so we also do tough stuff in the community as well. So we do a lot of community work too as well, where we work with after school programs and all that kind of stuff too as well. So check out my website, see some of the things you might be interested in, and just hit me up.
Maybe one day we can actually come down and actually do a show at your camp. I mean, at your academy that you're teaching these young guys how to run routes and really just help promote it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to do that, sir.
All right, my friend.
All right. Thank you for coming through, Mr. McCorvey. I'm going to send you out the same way we brought you in. That was Mr. Kez McCorvey, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you guys for tapping in with the legendary Florida State wide receiver, national champ, Hall of Famer, and man of God. So definitely appreciate Mr. McCorvey for coming through. It was an amazing, amazing treat to have him to talk about his journey with us. And like I said, I'm gonna get back to Falcons football for you guys, but we had to take a little bit of a pause because there's so many things going on and accumulating. Guess what? We're gonna have a lot of news for you. But on that note, we will catch you next time. If you definitely are still here, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you haven't already, we have more coming for you in the upcoming days. So as we say, you either get right or you get left. Go ahead and get right and catch us on the next one. Ghosts.